My suggestion would be to seek help in Oakvale. All the elites are gathered there, so they'll have the best doctors. You might be able to find someone who can help, Dr. Johnson advised. But with the current situation, I don't know if we can get help in time. Lily frowned. There's no need for such hassle. I've found us a miracle doctor. Just then, Jaden walked into the ward. Behind him was a balding, middle-aged man with a doctor's coat around him. He even had two assistants behind him, each carrying a big box of medical supplies. Allow me to introduce you to Mr. Rudolph Saunders. He's a doctor from Kimboku. Back when a horse had kicked Roxanne and nearly lost her life, Mr. Saunders had healed her. His medical skills are out of this world, Jaden said in admiration. Mr. Saunders, could this be the well-known miracle doctor from Kimboku? That's right. When I studied abroad in Kimboku, I had the honor of meeting Mr. Saunders once. He's truly a miracle doctor. With Mr. Saunders here, there is still hope for Mr. Caden. A clamor broke out in the ward due to Rudolph's presence. Many doctors looked at him in awe as though he was their idol. Though Kimboku was not a large country, its advancement in the medical field was better than Dragonmarsh. Many Dragonmarshian doctors hoped to go to Kimboku to advance themselves further. That would give them an edge in the medical field, and they'd be in demand once they returned. A miracle doctor. Lily was overjoyed to see him. She quickly greeted him. Mr. Saunders, please save my husband. No matter how much it takes to treat him, we will pay for it. Rudolph gave Lily a good look. His interest was immediately piqued, and a glimpse of lust burned in his eyes. Who knew that Dragonmartian women were so pretty? She still looked so alluring even when she'd already had a child. Mr. Saunders, please check on the patient, Jaden prompted. Yes, I'll have a look at him. Rudolph quickly looked away from Lily and approached Caden's bed. He began checking on Caden carefully. A while later, he said, the patient had gone to extremes in training, and that caused his circulatory system to be all messed up and blocked. Regular doctors won't be able to cure this. It's a deadly condition. But I'll be able to handle it easily. Everyone was glad to hear that. As expected from a miracle doctor like Mr. Saunders, he could diagnose the cause right away. He's amazing, Evan praised. Dragonmartian doctors are useless. You've been here for so long, and none of you have been able to come up with anything. In the end, we can only put our hopes on Mr. Saunders, Vivian sighed. Exactly. These good-for-nothings don't hold a candle to Mr. Saunders. The Murrays began showering Rudolph with flattery. So many specialists gathered there, but not even one of them knew how to treat Caden. But Rudolph had simply given him a checkup and was able to tell what was wrong. The difference between them was too obvious. Since you know how to treat him, please proceed with the treatment. Mr. Saunders, Lily did not wish to waste any more time. Bring me my medical box. Rudolph waved his assistants over and gestured for them to put his medical supplies in front of him. He opened up the boxes and began rummaging through them. Then, he pulled out a black bottle. This is the golden elixir, made of 108 rare and expensive herbs. It's especially useful for clearing blocked circulatory pathways and ensuring a steady and balanced blood flow. It works wonders, Rudolph said proudly. The patient will wake up and be fine within 3 minutes after ingesting the golden elixir. But it is quite expensive. How much will it cost? Lily asked. 300 million, Rudolph revealed. 300 million? All the Dragonmartian doctors gaped when they heard what Rudolph said. This was daylight robbery. 300 million was too much to ask for a bottle of medicine. That's not a problem. I'll give anything to save my husband. Lily didn't hesitate. Though 300 million was a lot, she could afford that. The money amounted to nothing compared to her husband's life. All right, I shall begin now since you're fine with that. Rudolph smiled at her before helping Caden up into a sitting position. He twisted open the bottle cap and was ready to feed Caden the elixir. Caden Murray will not live past 3 days if he takes the elixir. A voice was heard coming from the door. What? Everyone turned to see Dustin walking in. He had rushed to Millsburg upon receiving Sheila's call. Peaceful Medical Center was shut for the time being, and he arranged for Gregory, Maximus, and Caitlin to stay in Zephyr Lodge temporarily. Dustin, you're here. Sheila's eyes lit up as she hurried over to him. It's a good thing that I came in time. Caden will be in grave danger otherwise. Dustin's sharp gaze swept over to Rudolph. You're from Kimboku, aren't you? You don't have a conscience. You will endanger a patient's life just to make more money. Do you think you're fit to be a doctor? You insolent man. Jaden roared. Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to Mr. Saunders in such a manner? Precisely. Mr. Saunders is a miracle doctor from Kimboku, and his medical skills are exceptional. Who are you to spout nonsense about him? Vivian glared at Dustin. HMPH, you don't know what you're talking about. Evan exclaimed. Who are you? Who do you think you are to question me? Rudolph frowned. Was I wrong? Dustin asked frostily. The golden elixir is a cheap medicine. Its materials cost no more than several hundred. But you're asking for 300 million for it? Besides, it won't help Caden's condition. It will only give him a last surge of energy momentarily once he takes it, but he will certainly die soon after. At that, Rudolph's expression darkened. Why, you're spewing nonsense. After being exposed, Rudolph tried to act calm and composed, but he could not hide the panic in his eyes, though he hated to admit it. The golden elixir was cheap stuff that cost no more than several hundred. Of course, he could have easily sold it for several thousands, with his reputation and medical skills. Nonsense! Well, why don't we check out the components of the elixir then? Dustin pressed. If I'm not mistaken, there's also some form of stimulant added to the golden elixir. While there may be immediate life-saving effects, it would still deplete the patient's life. What you're doing is the same as killing the patient. You heartless bastard! Rubbish! I'm a miracle doctor from Kimboku. Someone like you should be looking up to me. How dare you accuse me? You better apologize to me right this instant. Rudolph fumed. Apologize? Do you deserve an apology from me? Dustin scoffed. You're not going to apologize, are you? Fine, I won't carry on with the treatment then. You guys can find a solution yourself. Rudolph was livid. He picked up his medical supplies and got ready to leave. Mr. Saunders. Jaden immediately stopped him from leaving. He smiled apologetically. Please don't be angry. This bastard is just a madman who doesn't know anything. Don't take things to heart. The patient's life is at stake. Yes, Mr. Saunders. This is a matter of life and death. You're the only one who can treat him now. Everyone tried to coax him into staying and treating Caden. Dustin, you better shut up. If you continue talking nonsense, I'll throw you out immediately. Jaden turned around to yell at him. Who gave you the right to speak rudely to Mr. Saunders? You should admit your mistake and apologize to him at once. Vivian shouted. That's right. Apologize at once. Evan echoed. Everyone's gaze on Dustin was malicious and filled with displeasure. He had questioned and slandered Rudolph the second he entered the ward. He even sent Rudolph away. What a bastard! I'm just stating facts. Why should I apologize? Dustin asked impassively. Doctors like you, who would do anything for money, will never be able to cure patients. Let him leave if he so wishes. I'll treat Mr. Murray personally. You, who the hell are you? How dare you compare yourself to Mr. Saunders? Jaden looked displeased. HMPH, doctors in Dragon Marsh are trash. All they're good for is treating the regular flu or fever. But only a miracle doctor from Kimboku, like Mr. Saunders, can help when any complications arise. Vivian huffed in disdain. Everyone knows that the medical skills that Kimboku has is way more advanced than what we have here in Dragon Marsh. We're on totally different levels. Your limited medical skills are incomparable to Mr. Saunders. Evan belittled. Have you been living under a rock that you don't know how things are? Dustin looked around him as he scoffed. In case you don't know, Kimboku's medical technology and skills originated from Dragon Marsh. We were the ones who taught them all they know, and they've only barely scraped the surface of what we know. If we're talking about medical talents, 10 of Kimboku's best doctors can't compare to a single medical genius we have here in Dragon Marsh. It's one thing to be narrow-minded and admire foreign things excessively, but please do not insult the doctors of Dragon Marsh because of your ignorance. All the Dragon Martian doctors in the ward were happy hearing what Dustin said. They wanted to applaud after his little speech. They were dissatisfied with being called trash straight to the face. Dustin had restored their honor with his speech. So what if their medical skills originated from Dragon Marsh? They've surpassed us now. and they've also successfully promoted the advancement of their medical expertise to the world. There is no mistake in saying that we are lacking compared to them. Is it so difficult for you to admit that other countries are better than ours? Vivian lifted her chin defiantly. Exactly. There are talented people from Kimboku all over the world. But are there any well-known Dragon Martians on an international scale? Evan challenged. From their point of view, Dustin was just there to pick a fight with them. He couldn't treat Caden, so he was there to belittle anyone who could. He was just a petty bastard. You narrow-minded people. Dustin shook his head. You guys should see the world and see how great Dragonmarsh is. Don't be stuck in your tiny worldview and spread your beliefs on how other countries are better than ours. Stand up for your own country. Vivian and the rest of them were upset at Dustin's words. Just as they were about to say more, Lily cut them off. Enough, this is not the time for pointless bickering. Caden's life is at stake. Exactly, Dustin. Quick, save my father. Sheila quickly reacted. Though Rudolph had a great reputation, she trusted Dustin more. Wait a second. Dustin was about to go up to Caden when Jaden stopped him. This is a life at stake. We cannot afford you messing things up. Mr. Saunders must be the one to treat him. I said it, he can't help him. He'll only put him in danger, Dustin answered. If even Mr. Saunders can't help him, what makes you think you can? Jaden suddenly turned to look at Lily. Aunt Lily, you should be the one deciding. Do you trust Mr. Saunders, or do you trust this brat? Well, Lily was in a dilemma when presented with such a choice. She had seen for herself how good Dustin's skills were. He had been the one who cured Sheila of her strange condition. But Rudolph had an exceptional reputation. He had been practicing medicine for decades. Rudolph should be much better than Dustin, regardless of experience or skills. Considering Caden's safety, she trusted Rudolph more. Mom, Dustin is good at what he does. I'm sure he'll be able to help Dad, Sheila said. Sheila, your father's life is on the line. How can you entrust his life in the hands of someone who doesn't have a good reputation? Who will take responsibility for it if anything were to happen? Jaden frowned.
Yes, Sheila, this brat doesn't look trustworthy. I'm sure Mr. Saunders is better than he is, Vivian persuaded. Mr. Saunders' medical skills are out of this world. He'll be able to cure him. But Uncle Caden will be in danger if you let this guy treat him, Evan warned. They all persuaded and sounded so confident in Rudolph that Sheila wavered. She was the type that was easily influenced by others. Now that everyone sounded so sure, she didn't know what to think anymore. Miss, I'm sure you won't want anything to befall your husband, would you? Rudolph asked. Lily seemed to want to say something, but she stopped herself. In the end, she looked at Dustin apologetically. Dustin, thank you for making the journey here, but I'd prefer Mr. Saunders to treat Caden. Miss, I'm not trying to show off, but Rudolph Saunders will not be able to treat Mr. Murray. If anything, he will only endanger his life. Please reconsider your decision. Dustin's expression was grave. It was true that he held a grudge against Jaden, but for Sheila and General Murray's sake, he was willing to help Caden, but he needed the Murrays to trust him. Dustin, Mr. Saunders has a reputation for his medical skills, and he's confident he'll be able to treat Caden. Trust him. Lily gave her final answer. Are you sure that's what you've decided upon? Dustin frowned. Once Saunders starts his treatment, Mr. Murray's condition will worsen. By then, I won't have the confidence to save him anymore. I'm sure. Lily nodded resolutely. Dustin, please show yourself so as not to bother Mr. Saunders. Lily made it clear that she was throwing Dustin out. Do you hear that? Get out. Don't be a nuisance here. How dare a nobody like him challenge Mr. Saunders? He thought too highly of himself. They all mocked Dustin, looking down on him. I hope you don't regret your decision. Dustin drew a deep breath and left without saying anything else. He had said all he could. Whether or not Caden survived was no longer any of his business. Dustin? Sheila panicked when she saw Dustin leave, so she chased after him. Dustin, I'm sorry. I didn't know Mr. Saunders would be here too. This is all my fault. Please don't be angry, Sheila said remorsefully. I'm not angry, Sheila. As a doctor, I hope that your dad can receive good treatment. But nobody trusts me. Dustin shook his head. He had warned them multiple times, but his warnings had been ignored. It wouldn't be appropriate for him to force himself on them further. "Dustin, I trust you, but..." Sheila stopped herself. Her parents were the ones who made the decisions in the family. As their daughter, she did not have much say. "It's all right, Sheila. Go back in. I'll go out for a cup of coffee. If anything happens, give me a call right away." Dustin smiled as he patted her on the shoulder. "All right then." Sheila nodded and headed back into the ward, but not before turning around several times to check on Dustin.